Well, thank you, Patreon supporters. Because of your support, we have another vacuum on the bench for repair, and we're going to continue to repair it. And if you haven't noticed, this is a Hoover Aerus Electrolux. And so I've got the motor here, and as usual, everything's always inspected before it's tested, and usually cleaned if we get the vacuum used. So we have the vacuum completely apart. Something I like is that there is a 3 LED cluster for the light. The fan is not really special, but you know, you have a high number of blades and this is spinning very, very fast. So that's nice, and you can see that there's some compression there. So maybe the equivalent of an Aerus XL21, as this was most certainly meant to kill the original Aerus, and it is slightly more powerful than the original Aerus, but again, I don't think because of the brush roller design, this is more like an Aerus Classic. So I really think this is kind of a strange middle ground between the Aerus Classic and the XL21. The base on this is just ABS. We do have some nice grommets where you have to disassemble it for belt changes. And what is nice is we see metal axles for the wheels, and the wheels have the nice rubber coating on that. And when we go to the base plate, same sort of thing, the wheels have a rubber coating. So that's kind of nice. And then one other thing I like is it's marked belt style 18. Now nobody knows what a belt style 18 is. I asked a friend of mine who owns a vacuum store, do you have any 18 belts for Royal or Hoover? And he looked at me like I had 6 heads. And it's because the style 18 belt is the same as a Aerus belt, except the 18 belt will actually have knurls similar to a Kirby, but it's about the same tension and size with that. So we're going to go ahead and put this together, and I'll show you guys. And that's kind of cool, you know, it's kind of a neat little machine. So I've washed everything in the usual process, so I figured I would share with you putting this together. There's my Teflon grease. Switched brands of Teflon grease to a bicycle grease, but it's the same sort of stuff. It's just easier to find. That Tri-Flow is becoming harder and harder to find in grease form, but not in dropper form. It's probably way more than I need on that. And this is really more to stop creaking with this than anything. Here is the motor. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to set this in here like this. And before we do that, I'm going to just put a little bit. You don't want to overdo this because then this would get on the belt and that would be a no-go. So that's probably all the Teflon grease we need. I cleaned the grease out that was originally in here. Oh, there's one other place that would normally have grease. That would be the detent, but I don't like the grease detents. They don't work as well. Alright, so let's set that. You can see that this all just goes in there with a permanent gasket. There's no need to change the gasket on this like a Aerus, which is kind of a nice change of pace. Just put a little bit on there. That will help with creaks and rattles. And maybe prolong the life of these, but these are Teflon themselves. Let's give it a drill. See if I remember where everything goes. I've had this thing apart for a couple of weeks now. So we're going to take a mystery guess of where screws go, since they all are basically the same. Start putting things in. Yeah. All right. And we can see the double insulation here on this wire is really nice. It's silicone high heat stuff. Can't see that really getting hot, but it's kind of cool that they did that. Just making sure it's nice and clean. It just kind of drops onto that, like so. Settle that. Incredibly simple machine. It's very similar to an Aerus in that way, and that I like. Simple is good when it comes to vacuum cleaners. Alright, I didn't over torque that. All right, so let's, like I said earlier, the belt is, we're going to use an Aerus belt. You really should use a style 18 belt if you can find them, but I never see them. Now we have, just like in Aerus, these are eccentric, except they're eccentric in their own way to only go in one way. So keep that in mind when you're putting these in. You don't put them in backwards like an Aerus. You can only put them in upright. It's interesting that they took that height adjustment out. Now this brush roller was made by CWP, who is the company who makes them for Kirby and Aerus and numerous other ones. So it's really interesting that they went with that same company to produce their brush roller. And they make very high quality brush rollers, CWP does. Just stretch that on there. Walk it over to the center. Excellent. Now another interesting touch is that this pulley, when you take it off, has Loctite on it, which is a little different than your Aerus. Alright. And when there are the brass fittings, I don't like to use the drill. I find that tends to strip those brass fittings out. I like to just use a screwdriver and hand do them. So just a little tip, if you see grommets, a lot of times when they're sunk into ABS, they'll come loose. Polycarbonate's different, but ABS, they come loose. Let's do that. In there. Now I'm going to give it just a little bit of Tri-Flow love in the oil form. And I think the reason you don't see the grease Tri-Flow on the market is the oil is often sold for bike chains. So very common use. All that. All right. Now, unfortunately, when I took this apart, I didn't film it for you, but they had a bunch of masking tape wrapped around here, trying to hold this on instead of the proper gaskets that go on here. So I've got one gasket. I don't have the other. Now what's interesting is this is the Electrolux model number, this U162C, and that's printed again right here as well. And you have to look up the Hoover Royal model number. Let's see if that will. That's a little on the bent side. Let's do a reform. Proper way I like to reform. I don't like to use my nice screwdrivers for this. I like using a screwdriver. Let's see if that will reform. I think the aluminum's slightly cracked. If not, we'll put this together probably like this. So let's do that. And again, this is the same sort of thing as an ORC, where you're just using these rubber gaskets to hold friction. And a little bit of pledge goes a long way with these things. Alright. That one, I really don't want it blowing into where it can clog the fan, because it's deformed a little bit there. Alright, cool. And now we have the rest of this shenanigans to put together. I do have one ORC gasket here for this, which is slightly on the big side, but it will work for the purpose of putting this together. And you're going to see this is so similar to an XL21, it's stupid. No, I'll just put that on the wrong order. Let me just do everything wrong on camera for you guys. And if this ORC gasket is too swollen, it's not gonna fit. Again, because the ORC gasket is fatter, there's going to be a gap, but it's actually not going to be leaking dust through there, so just keep that in mind with this particular repair. And I have the smaller ring for the rest of the handle up here. Again, if anybody sees this, this looks so similar to an XL21, but it's a different part, not interchangeable. And then you have just one cord clip here. Cord management's kind of sloppy, but that's really all you can do. And then the next, that clips in there, and then this goes right here with my black screws. Yeah, there it is. Alright, let's talk about bags for a second with this machine, because that's a interesting conversation. The bags for this machine, you can get Electrolux Aerus bags. That's something you can do. I don't know why you would do it though, because Royal Type B bags fit this. Now you can get these in a cloth HEPA that will fit in here, and I highly recommend getting those, and I'm going to put a link below to get those. I have, made in the US, found for $1.99 in the thrift store, Royal HEPA type. So these are similar to the Micro Magic Kirby bags. Excuse me. So I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna use a set of vintage bags, because if you don't use them, they go bad and the glue and stuff comes in on them. And you can see there's a nice diagram of an old school metal Royal. Now you can also get this with a Hoover logo, and the newer ones will have a rubber gasket around them. Again, this is before that. It's kind of vintage to the machine. This, you would be able to walk in the vacuum shop and get this at the time. And for as little vacuuming as we're going to do with this, this will have to do. It just goes just like that. So I like those bags. If you get them in the modern format, in the vintage format, probably not. But again, the price was right. So that is all together. And we have this nice bright orange cord to match their logo. But the bright orange cord is not, it's not like a commercial quick disconnect cord. It's just like a normal cord, except orange. Now before we get to much more, I know this seems to be controversial, but we're going to put gloves on, and we're going to take care of some of these paint marks on here. I cleaned most of the paint marks off with laundry detergent, but we have a couple here that are still on here. We had a couple stickers that were on here too. As well. Some of these are just battle scars. Here, they're not going to come off. All right, that's nice. Let's give it a little bit of polish there. You can also use Armor All if you don't have Pledge handy, but I prefer Pledge just because it's cheap and it comes in an aerosol can. So that's how we do that. Again, thank you Patreon supporters for your support. I do have an announcement. We're going to try to go to VDTA again this year, which means that you guys are going to get to see a bunch of cool stuff. But just keep in mind that that is going to be kind of costly as well. And stick around, of course, for the vacuum raffle during Hanukkah.